Hello Internet, AdoptedMike here, and in this video I'm going to be basically building a Windows home server, and I'm starting off with this MSI board here. This is it's an H77 board, and it's a G43, so it's H77MA-G43 board. Obviously you can see it's a micro ATX board. I did an unboxing video and quick overlook, so you can check that out if you want to. But anyway, so I'm going to kind of go over here what my plans for the build are, and then I will get started. So the parts that I am using for this build, obviously, we mentioned the motherboard, and I am also going to be, well, not really also, but I am using the Pentium G2120 CPU in there. I chose this because I really don't need a whole lot of power. Mostly what I wanted is a storage solution server rather than, I'm not going to have it doing anything hardcore, I don't think. So we've got a 3.1 gigahertz dual core, 55 watt TDP, so I'm not expecting a whole hell of a lot out of it. I am however going to upgrade the CPU cooling a little bit better with this particular cooler from Rosewill. The fan is a little bit bigger, the heat sink's a little bit taller, it's a little bit heavier as well too. I think I'm not as concerned about that as keeping the CPU cool, but I think this one is going to do a better job keeping the CPU cool, and it's also it's a better fan, so the downdraft is going to be better across the circuitry around there as well too. So I mean, I think it's a cheap upgrade. I actually have this laying around that I was intending to use for another build that fell through, so I mean, this is sitting here collecting dust. I might as well utilize it for you know, for this project. Then I'm also going to be adding in an Intel NIC, a dual NIC, so then I'm going to, they can be teamed up together, so I can start to push closer to 2 gigabits a second rather than 1 gigabit a second. So I will use that in this slot here on the bottom is only a by 4 slot, so that'll work great for the by 4 card here. So we'll pop that in, and that will work there. For storage, you know, server, we only have 2 6 gigabits and 4 3 gigabits, so probably what I'm going to do is I may use an optical drive, and I'm definitely going to use an SSD for the operating system. I've got Intel SSD here, and it's 180 gigabytes. Windows Home Server requires 160 to boot, so I've got this 530 series that I picked up for a pretty good deal, and it's, like I said, it's 180 gigabytes, so I intend to boot the operating system off of that and keep the operating system very peppy. Then for storage, I picked up this LSI card, and this will run 8 SATA 6 gigabit a second off of a PCI Express by 8, so I'll slap that one in there eventually. And then I also picked up, I wish I could have got a different color, but this is what they had, so I picked up 2 of these, which will allow up to 8 hard drives off of this. And then I've got some RAID that I haven't exactly picked. I'm probably going to do RAID 10. RAID 5 is a little too slow in writes, and RAID 10 is more wasted space, but I definitely want to, you know, have the redundancy there over speed. And besides, even with the 2 NICs or the 2 gigabits coming out, I'm going to be more than fast enough with a RAID with really anything. The bottleneck is totally going to be the network at that point. And this would also assume too, on the other end, I'm going to have 2 NICs on the other end, on the receiving end, to get the full bandwidth anyway. So it really doesn't matter if I just run a bunch of RAID 1s or however I decide to do it, but I figured I'd play with it, test it out, see what I like better as far as what I run for a RAID. So that rounds out the hardware, and now I guess it's time. Well, I have the case. Let's not forget the case, so let's take a look at that. So as you can see, the case I'm using is the Fractal Define R4, and I got the white one, obviously. So anyway, Newegg had a really good sale on it with free shipping. So I figured, I've always liked this case. In fact, my old Windows Home server has the black version of this case, which I like that as well too. But I figured, you know what? For the new one, I'll try a different color. The price was right. It has all the features and functionalities that I'm looking for in a case. You know, plenty of airflow. It's a quiet case as well too, and you know, there's just so much to work with. I mean, there's been several people that have reviewed it, and I know there's some people that don't like it, but and there's a few minor nitpicks and that type of stuff. And I'm not going to do a review on the case because there's 1,000 of them literally out there. But yeah, so this is the case I am going to be working in. The biggest reason for me to get this case is this. I will show you, and that would be the 8 hard drive bays, and the fact that you can mount the SSDs on the back side very easily. So my thought is, I'm going to hide the SSD behind the motherboard tray, and then I have, you know, 8 drives. So if I throw 8 2 terabyte drives in there, even with RAID 1ing them, or 10 for that matter, you know, I can still get 8 terabytes worth of storage space, server storage space. So that's my biggest reason for this case, and the fact that if you don't pop out the I think they call them modu vents, if you don't pop those out, and you can or not, but it's pretty quiet as well too, and you can close the front door and everything looks good. So this is just a great case for a server in my opinion. Okay, and and one last thing I forgot. For power, gotta have power. So for the power supply, I'm going to use the CX500M that's pictured here in the video, and this is a modular 500 watt power supply. You know, what can you say? It's modular, it's 500 watts. It's probably more than I need. I needed to make sure that I have enough power to spin up 8 hard drives during startup, and the fact that it's modular helps as well too, because I won't need a lot of the cables like the Molexes. I won't need the PCI Express cables as well either. So this way I can try to keep cable clutter down to a minimum, keep the airflow up as high as possible, and then everybody will just be happy. So now we'll get on with the build. Okay, so we'll start off with the CPU. Can only really go one way, so you just double check. Locked and loaded. Put that down. Pop. Boom. Done. Easy. And I was going to take a look here at the difference between the stock cooler and then also the one that I'm going to be using. So here is the difference. You can see the heatsink fins are a little taller on the Rosewill one. The fan for sure is a bigger diameter, and it's a more of a funneled airflow down, where this one, it's, you know, the air could potentially come out sideways, where this is kind of forcing it to go down and all the way through the fins, which there are more of them anyway. But they're both, neither one of them are copper, but the one on the left here, the Rosewill one, feels like it has quite a bit more heft. And like I said, it's not doing anything anyway, so we'll definitely just use this one. And there's installed. And I always like to double check my installation on the bottom there, and I like to make sure that each one of these has popped through and it's good to go. So we have a nice secure, oops, watch the camera there, nice secure connection, and you know, I always make sure one last time, plug it in, and well, if I oriented it the right way. Boom. There we go. So that's started. Now we'll get some RAM in there as well too. So for RAM, which I actually missed earlier, I'm gonna go with two 4 gig ADATA XPG DIMMs. I know this is kind of overkill, having, you know, well, of course, I guess it is only 1600 megahertz, but the price was definitely right on these things. I think I picked up this 8 gig, well, it is 8 gigs, but I picked up 2 of these, and I want to say I paid like 20 bucks each. So 40 bucks for 8 gigs, you really can't beat that price. So I picked those up, and that'll be the RAM. Alright, RAM's installed. Now it's time. Let's do a test boot here and make sure that everything is working and we get some kind of a output to the monitor. Alright, so jump to the power supply. See what we have over there. Here we go, looks good. Let's see, press F1 to enter setup. And we have the MSI setup right there. Perfect. Okay, so now I know I have a working system here. We've got everything. Fan's a little loud, but that can definitely be remedied. It was a 4-pin, it was a PWM fan connector, so we can definitely, probably in BIOS, it might just have it maxed out. But it moves a lot of air, and it pushes a lot of air where I was hoping to across the VRMs, keeping everything a little cool, pushing a little bit back over the down here, back over the RAM as well too. Not so much the second one, but the first one. Okay, so I have a successfully working system. It's always good to double check though before you put it in the case, because you just never know. It would really suck to put the whole damn thing together and then have an issue and have to take it all apart. So everything is working. Now it's time to put it in the case. So as you can see here, I've pretty much got the build done. Came together pretty well. I do, again, I'm going to say I do like this Fractal design case. Kind of move in here a little bit. But I've installed 4 of the 8 2TB hard drives there to get started. And then moving over, obviously you can see the motherboard and everything. I used this little spot cooler here. Is actually blowing directly over the heatsink on the LSI RAID card, and then this card down here is my dual Intel NIC. And the only thing I guess I don't like is I should have in retrospect either sleeved these cables white or black, or tried to purchase them in white or black as far as for the expander there. But I guess that's, you know, it. I mean, it's not really, I mean, you still have the multicolored up here anyway, so it's not horrible, but, you know, and it's going to be a Windows home server anyway, so it's not like I'm going to be showing it off. The side panel doesn't have a window or anything like that. So anyway, that is a good look at the inside. And then let's see if we can get down there. I mounted the SSD. You can see the back side of the SSD. I mounted it behind the motherboard tray, and I actually mounted it lower. These 2 screws here are meant to be the bottom, but then that would mean the top 2 screws were behind the motherboard, and I just said, well, I figured, you know, that's just not the way I wanted to do it anyway, so I just only used 2 screws and mounted it lower. This way I could remove the SSD if needed be without removing the motherboard. That would be my only complaint about the case, is mounting the SSD behind the motherboard. You have to mount it first, and if you ever need to remove the SSD, you'd have to take the whole motherboard out. So if this was an ATX motherboard, it would go past that, and then it would definitely have no choice but to remove the motherboard to get to the SSD. So I wish it had a better mounting system on the back for that. But anyway, let me flip it around to the other side. Okay, so you can see here how I have it run right now. I still have a little bit of cable management to do. This is about, you know, this is more than halfway for me. I'm not super good at it, but I do try to get as much out of the way as possible. So there you can see the SSD mounted the back of the motherboard tray, and you can see everything else that I have going on in there. I'm glad it was a modular power supply, so at least I was able to minimize some of the cable. I only needed to run a single Molex back here, and then I was able to run it converter to SATA, and then run this converter to the 4 SATA up here cable. So for the other 4 drives I'll just plug another one of these 1 Molex to 4 SATAs in, and then I'll be able to get the well, except for the gap here. I suppose I might have to do a little workaround for this jump is a longer jump than these little ones will allow. And then I just have to tidy up this red cable, the expander here, and then the side panel is ready to go on. And then here is a look at the back. Not really a whole lot going on that's out of the ordinary, other than we have the LSI RAID card here, and we have the dual Intel gigabit NIC, and I've done some dust caps on some of the things I know I'm not going to use, and then I probably will put some more dust caps in those just to keep dust from accumulating. So that pretty much kind of lines it out. I did replace the 140 mil in the back with a different 140 mil fan, and then I took the one that was back here and put it up front, so I would have dual 140s up front pushing in across the hard drive cages. I am kind of curious. They do seem like they don't move a lot of air, so it'll be interesting to see the temperatures on those hard drives. In retrospect, maybe I should have gone with a slower hard drive like a NAS series or something. But those all 4 are 7200 RPM drives, so I'm curious with how they're running. We'll see if the temperatures increase, and if they get a little too warm, I'll probably have to replace the front fans with something a little more powerful, or maybe more static pressure optimized fans. So anyway, that will wrap up pretty much the entire build. Like I said, I have a few more tidying things to do and put the side panels on. And yeah, so anyway, I'll continue on in another video with the installation of Windows Home Server. So that wraps up this stage anyway. As always, thank you for watching.